It's a problem-free philosophy. Hakuna Matata. And we're live.
Thank you for that musical.
You're welcome.
It really just like improved my mood. I just feel so ready to go.
Oh, I'm glad.
So guys, I took Anna to play paintball. She did not play.
I looked so ag.
Thank you. Good job. Good job.
I looked the part. I looked like I knew what was going on and what I was doing. I fired the paintball gun a couple times, not at anybody, at targets and picnic tables and cones.
Yeah.
And that was about it. And then I watched everybody else do it, and I had a great time.
Yeah. That was pretty much the summary of it.
Pretty much what happened.
We met our biggest, I've known Barry forever, but you met our biggest fan, Barry Yule. That's my third dad. Love you, Barry. Yeah. So pretty much, Anna learned some lingo. Ag means like there is no shorthand. There is nothing we need to dissect about what ag stands for.
I Googled it because I knew that y'all were wrong and that I was correct. Ag in paintball like lingo means that you like look the part. You look like a paintball player, but it's not just like the gear you're wearing. It's also like
Explain to me how we were wrong with the definition you're saying.
The definition wasn't wrong. The origin of the word is wrong. Because I was like, does ag short for anything like aggro, aggressive, or whatever? And y'all were like, no, it's just ag. I Googled it, and people on Reddit differ.
I don't care what people. I don't care.
They said no, it is short for aggressive.
They're on Reddit arguing about what the word ag means. Newsflash, they're not ag. So
they weren't arguing. They were just explaining.
Only Anna would tell us that we're wrong about a word and a culture we're a part of. Just like she was trying to tell me where I'm from and that I don't know where I lived.
Listen. Turn
the Hermione down. Ravenclaw doesn't mean that you gotta be mean to everybody. I'm the Slytherin and you're meaner than me.
I'm not mean. I'm just a know-it-all and insufferable sometimes.
I didn't say that.
I'm self-aware. I'm aware that I'm insufferable occasionally and a know-it-all, and that's annoying. But, I mean, I am who I am.
Take it or leave it. Sometimes you just want to leave it. And then you come back later. I told her she was toxic.
Our friendship is toxic or just me? I'm the only toxic element of this?
Yes. I'm perfect.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't know. Like, I think I'm just pretty great. You know?
Good for you. Snaps for Jessica. She's got that
I'm great.
Self-confidence.
Yeah.
I just like think I'm pretty great,
Yeah.
Love that for you.
Yeah. You're just, you're trying.
And who is toxic in this relationship?
I'm kidding. No, it is so funny though to go edit the episodes because then I'm just sitting here looking at some of our mannerisms and I'm like, damn, that's why we only got like 3 friends. And we're all friends with each other.
Yes.
It's not like 3 separate friends. It's like we're all just the same 3, 4 of us.
Yes, it's not like each of us has 3 different friends. No, just our friend group. That's it.
I mean, I guess technically I have a few others, but they're not in the state, so it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
paintball's fun.
Yeah, it was cool. Travis wanted to play, so I mean, it was fun. He was like excited to take everybody.
I feel like it's always fun when you get to like bring people to do something that you really enjoy doing and are good at doing.
Yeah.
So, and that they know nothing about or like very little about, because you get to be like, look how cool this is and how much I know. And I get to like share my knowledge.
It was weird to share that part of my life with you though.
Yeah.
Cause like, you're just like, I have like different boxes for like certain things that I do. And so I was like, oh, you met my friends.
You will not contain me in this box over here.
In these boxes. But yeah, it's just weird because it's like we don't hug, but I hug all my paintball friends.
It's just weird. It would be weird if we started now.
I wouldn't be into it.
Have we talked about this on the podcast before? Like me not being a hugger, or like that our like friend group, we don't
hug. The last time I saw anybody hug anybody was when we terrified Sierra and you hugged her.
Oh God.
That was fucking sorry, Sarah. That was so fucking funny.
I felt so bad.
I felt bad after, yeah.
So have we told this? I don't think we've told this story.
No.
So it was Halloween night. Me, you, and our friend Lauren had decided we're trying to get all 4 of us like to do something fun on Halloween. Like we're going to watch a movie or hang out or something. And Sierra was being lame and was like, no, I'm just going to stay home. Even though she didn't have to work. She didn't have anything to do.
Yeah. I don't even remember what she said she was doing, but we just knew she was going to be at the house.
I'm like, her fiance at the time was like working. So she was just going to be at the house by herself on Halloween being lame and didn't want to come hang out with us. So we were like, you know what we should do? We should go scare her. So we stopped at Walmart. I bought, and I still have, one of those big animal heads. Like
it's a rabbit.
It's a rabbit head. And it's got like the mesh where the mouth is so you can see through it where your eyes go. And we got some fake blood. And so we pulled into the Dollar General parking lot that was across the street from her house. And we bloodied up our rabbit head. And then I put the rabbit head on. And then the aim was to then like go around her house and kind of like peek in her windows and just kind of like scare her a little bit.
Yeah, but this is me. I'm taking this part over because you and Lauren were being chickens. So we get over there and we don't even have the head on yet, but we're just like trying to peek through, see where she is. And then
and we had left our cars parked across the street. So we walked, it was a little 2-lane highway. We ran across the highway and we're like in the dark walking around and
it's pitch black. And so then, and like where she lived was a very creepy, like kind of area anyway.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't like a suburb, but it wasn't super secluded. So there were houses you could see, like her neighbors, you could see the houses from her house, but they weren't super close either. So just to get some context.
So all of a sudden, they're just like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And I just was like, fuck this. And I just bang as hard as I can on the outside of her house. Like, pop, pop, pop.
Yeah. We were outside the window of where her bedroom was. And you banged not on the window, but on like the siding of the house, the wood of the frame right next to it. She loud as shit. And so then Sierra very quickly knew that she was like, oh shit, someone's here. And so she immediately jumps up. She's in her bedroom, turns out the light and runs to like her bathroom on the other side of the house.
No, that's not even the best part. The best part, yeah, she did all that or whatever, but the best fucking part about it, so she's already scared shitless.
Yeah.
The best part about it is that one of us put the head on. I know you had it on at one point. I know I had it on. I know at one point I had it on because I looked through. Her front door had that square window up front. Yeah. And she was like
pacing in the hallway.
Well, she kind of kept peeking, like to see like what's there. And then at one point she looked down and all she saw was that bloody rabbit head. And she called 911.
So she's on the phone with 911. At that point, we saw that she was on the phone and kind of knew what was happening. And so we just start knocking on the door, trying to and take the head off. We're peeking through so you can clearly see our faces through the glass. And we're calling her name. We're like, Sierra, 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 like yelling her name. And I don't know if she's in full on like fight or flight mode, terrified. Like she couldn't hear or see anything other than, oh my God, like panic. And so we, at that point, start trying to text her and try to call her, but she's on the phone with 911, so she's not looking at her text and phone calls. And we're like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. We're like, we're going to be here, the 3 of us. We're about to get shot. Like the police are going to pull up. We're going to get arrested.
A police officer right as she figured out, she finally looked out and she said,
she figured out it was us.
It's my stupid ass friends. As she's opening the front door, the cop they sent.
Yeah, he's pulling up.
And then I guess like he was told, hey, don't worry about it. And then he just drove off. Like literally it was. And then she's like hysterical because I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah, she was very upset. And then we had the foresight to get some cupcakes. We had brought cupcakes beforehand because we knew that we're going to need to.
She was not happy.
No, she was very upset.
But that's the last time I've seen any of us hug.
Yeah, and so then I
didn't hug her.
I hugged her.
You did.
I felt really bad. And then we're like, we brought cupcakes.
Well, yeah, it was one of those things where I felt really bad, but it was really fucking funny. Like, it was really fucking funny.
It's a fun story to tell after the fact, but I really did feel bad that we scared
in the
her.
moment, I felt bad, but like, I'm really bad with like emotions like that because my nervous system is aware that a reaction is necessary, and I find it easier to grin than I do to go, oh, I'm just like, that's horrible for you.
Because you're like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm that type of person that like I could genuinely feel so horrible, but if you tell me something on the fly that's bad, I might smile. Like, you could be like, I was walking down the stairs, and then all of a sudden I slipped and I fell. And then when I landed, I realized that I just landed on my cat and he's dead. And I'd be like, oh, that's really sad. Because it's like, it is sad, but there's just something about like, I have read about this, that I am not the only person that is guilty of like, I don't, like how I'm reacting is not a true reflection of how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Well, because part of it, I think, is like when you're uncomfortable and don't know how to react to something, the default is sort of like laughter or like, okay.
That sucks.
But then also, if you think about it, the reason like that you laugh at things partially is because of surprise. Like a reaction to something surprising is, so like the punchline of a joke often is a punchline you don't see coming, right? And that's what part of what makes it funny is like the surprise of it. Or like, you know, if somebody falls and then you laugh at that, like you do, the part of the laughter, part of your reaction, the reason it's laughter is because you're reacting to the surprise that way. So when you've been so conditioned to react to something surprising with laughter, it's not that far of a stretch to be like when somebody tells you something surprising that's also horrible but surprising, to be like,
yeah, like it's not my fault. See?
It's society.
Yeah, it's society's fault. It's not my fault.
We've been conditioned.
Exactly.
She is working on a script for a short film.
And
we were talking earlier about like her filming dates for it. And then she said, we were telling Brooke, who is your filmmaker partner in crime. She said, oh, Anna saved the day with the script because I was so over it and didn't want to work on it. And then we talked on the phone for like an hour and a half one day last week. And just like me throwing out scenarios and different ideas and like, well, maybe try doing it this way or this way. And you were just like, no, that's not going to work. We can't do it this way. That's too complicated. Blah, 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 blah. And then finally,
I was pretty much like insufferable.
And then the last like 10, 15 minutes of the conversation, I said one thing. And then you were like, immediately, that's it. That's what we're going to do. And immediately you were like back on board. You're like, I'm good. My creative juices are flowing. I'm excited about the project again. So I saved the day. It's the moral of that story. But when we were talking about that, I was looking at my phone call history from the past week. And I was like, Jessica, you called me on the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, and the 18th.
You didn't have to answer.
Well, the one time I didn't answer because I was still at work. And then I called you back maybe like an hour later. You were like, literally answered the phone. I could be dead.
Yeah.
That's how you answered the phone.
I could have been dead.
I'm like, but you're not. So.
Well, lucky for you.
Yeah. Well, lucky for you.
Lucky for me. Yes. So yeah, that was pretty much that.
Yeah.
So have you heard of this thing called maladaptive daydreaming? Maladaptive. I just don't know how to word.
Maladaptive.
Maladaptive. Have you heard of this?
I have not. I know what like regular daydreaming is, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, so when we talk like daydreaming, anytime someone says daydreaming, I automatically think of like, oh, you're sitting in class, staring out the window, like lost in your thoughts, I guess. Is that kind of like not focused on what other people are doing?
That is not what this is.
Okay.
So,
because I do that frequently. I frequently get lost in my thoughts. I can be driving and then thinking about other things, and I don't even know how I got from point A to point B.
No, this is a lot. Okay. So I kind of always I didn't realize this was like a disorder or condition. I just was like this my whole life and didn't.
You have a condition?
Shocker.
Is it contagious?
I don't think so. So I have always been a daydreamer, and I don't mean daydreaming like, oh man, I really wish that so-and-so liked me. I mean, there's that too.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean to the point that I have plot lines. I have things I revisit. I schedule my daydream time. I stare at the ceiling for hours while also listening to music, imagining these scenarios. And it's like my time. And if I get interrupted, I get extremely angry because I'm like, I'm in the fucking middle of the best part. I have a whole plot and you're fucking it up. But I mean, it's not just like when you're going to bed and you're like, oh yeah, let me just have my little fantasy. It's like, no, it's very in depth. There's characters, which is, I guess, how I got into the whole writing thing. I mean, I've been like that since I was a little kid. I've always, and I need music, right? I mean, I could do it without music, but I just like the effect and the drama of the music.
I mean, I've always had a very active imagination, you know, playing with toys, coming up with scenarios and plot lines for them.
Yeah.
You know, if you hear a song, you can kind of envision like the music video in your head.
See, that's normal.
Like sort of thing. And I'm like, yeah. Or I have a very vivid imagination, especially when I'm reading. A lot of people, but especially when I was younger, were like, I hate reading. How can you do it so much? Because I'm a like big book nerd. And I'm like, what do you mean you hate reading? I'm like, it's so interesting. You find a good book and it's literally a movie in your head.
Yeah.
Like I see everything. It gets to a point where I don't even see words on the page. I'm reading it, but I see everything unfolding like a movie in my head. So I have a very active imagination. I have never once in my life just sat there. I've never once just like sat there and just completely zoned out, like, and thought of all of that world building plot line. I've never done that.
Yeah, so it's a problem, and it's actually something that's very bad. I mean, it's very bad in the sense that it can really take over your life, because it can, and a lot of people with ADHD suffer from it. So, the definition is, it is known as a daydreaming disorder. Maladaptive daydreaming describes a condition where a person regularly experiences daydreams that are intense and highly distracting. Basically, like, they disassociate from reality completely. 100,000%. That's what I do. I mean, it's down to like the point that sometimes when you're so into it, you catch yourself, like, you know how when you're in a dream, you might be twitching, you might be doing this. Yeah. Down to that, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just like, sometimes that's how you almost wake yourself out of this scenario, because you're like, your brain's like, whoa, you just moved. That was weird. And then you're like, oh, I'm awake now. And so there are times that even when you're like, they're having dialogue and you catch yourself mouthing these words, it's very fucking bizarre. And it's very impulsive to the point that sometimes, like, and I'm guilty of this too, I don't even realize I suddenly started. And then suddenly I'm like,
what just happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much where, like, you don't even realize that's what you're doing. It is so impulsive. And so these are some symptoms. Some symptoms are intense and vivid daydreams that present as a story with characters, setting, and plot lines. Daydreams that are triggered by real-world events or sensory stimuli. Oftentimes, maybe I ain't writing a fan fiction, but I might have seen an event or watched something that I'm like, I'm going to take that and make it my own in my head very intensely and very detailed. And I'm only going to use some of the loose stuff, but like sometimes real world stuff will trigger what I'm now going to be daydreaming about for hours upon hours on end.
I guess because then that's like the sort of inspiration, because you, and I mean, that would make sense though, because you have such like a creative mind, especially for storytelling, that I mean, you frequently will like watch or read something and you're like, this is how you make that better. This part sucked. Like, the premise of this was decent, but this is how you fix it and make it better. And like, it's very, you need to have this happen and this happen and this character needs to be this way and blah, 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 blah. And like detailed points of like, this is how I improve that story.
I'm better than everybody. Unconscious facial expressions, repetitive body movements, or talking or whispering that accompany the daydreams. Daydreams that last for several minutes to hours. Somebody interrupts my daydream. I'm like, you basically just interrupted my show. Leave me the fuck alone. A strong or addictive desire to keep daydreaming. Trouble focusing and completing daily tasks due to daydreaming. Trouble sleeping. So a person can exhibit one, more, or all set. I mean, it's a very, very new type of thing. I mean, it was in the early 2000s that a doctor's like, this is its own thing. Now, the people that it's not proven yet. It's very, some people don't even recognize this yet, but it's a lot of people that suffer from this. It's taken over my life. I mean, that it really can though. It's really, really, it's actually not that great. Depends who you ask. But I guess like really, if these people went to jail, they'll always be entertained. They'll be able to entertain themselves. So there's a plus. If you go to prison and you can maladaptive daydream, you're good.
Yeah. You don't need to watch anything, read anything. You're just in your head.
So if you maladaptive daydream, it's common that you also have ADHD and anxiety disorder, certain types of depression, dissociative disorders, and OCD. You don't have to have those in order to have maladaptive daydreaming. And at this point, they're not comfortable saying that maladaptive daydreaming is a symptom.
They're just comorbidities.
They're not comfortable being like, oh, well, a symptom of ADHD is maladaptive daydreaming. At this point, they're still categorizing it as its own thing.
Yeah, comorbidities with like are basically just two things that it's often common to have two disorders or something like that at the same time. So like a lot of people with ADHD may also have anxiety or depression, right? People that have depression may also have anxiety as a comorbidity, or it's just basically two disorders that occur at the same time. So that it would be a comorbidity of, or it would be considered a comorbidity.
Yeah. So it just blew my mind. And then the very last thing that I'm like fact wise on it is a lot of people who suffer from this suffered from some sort of trauma as a child. Not all of them have, but a lot of them have a daydreaming history ever since they were a child, and they seem to have a history of like abuse, and especially during those childhood years, it seems to be like a lot of people, if they suffered that, they may develop this, or maybe that's how they started to cope. But not everybody who suffers from maladaptive daydreaming suffered from that. So there's so many things about the disorder that's like, oh, well, it's linked to this, but not completely.
I guess it is more like comorbidity or correlation versus causation at this point, because they just probably don't know enough about it yet.
Really, I mean, it'd be difficult to study, I guess, because it's something that like, I don't know how you could measure that.
I mean, it would have to be anecdotal. Like it basically, you would have to do scientific study, and you would have to do enough of them and talk to enough people that there is a consensus of like, these are the most common sort of symptoms. I mean, the same thing with like anxiety, depression, ADHD. It's like, you just have to identify that this could be a thing, and then you do studies to look at like the different symptoms and what's common across different people.
Yeah,
So.
I just didn't realize, like, it was on TikTok that I saw that, and it really blew my mind because I never really had a name for that, and I never thought it was like a whole thing. And I'm not one of those that's like, oh my gosh, I found my family, but I was like, oh wow, that's actually
My community.
But I mean, it was very interesting because I was like, wow, I've never once really like talked about that. And sometimes people are just sharing way too much that they just need to let it be. But at the same time, I'm like, it is interesting to know that other people do that it's like, I literally am content sometimes. And it does affect my life. There are times that I haven't gotten things done because I'm like, no, I'm literally going to lay down. When I say I'm going to listen to music, I don't mean listen to music. I mean, I'm going to be using music to
trigger an episode.
To do whatever I'm doing.
to trigger an episode.
Basically, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you know what's interesting or weird, I don't know, is that a lot of the things you were saying, I experience, but when I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say like the kind of like you get totally absorbed in your imagination, in your head, and like to the exclusion of like you disassociate from reality, literally when I read, nothing else exists. I can literally sit or lay in the same position, not have to eat, drink, move, literally won't move, and just be completely absorbed in what I'm reading, to the point where I forget, like I have no observance of time passing, like nothing, because I'm so absorbed in what's happening, like hours, right? Yeah. So totally there with you, but that could also just be like hyper focus of like, I'm completely absorbed in what I'm doing. Yeah. But then even the when you said like the body twitching or mouthing or facial movements and stuff, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God. I do that when I'm reading, because we talked about that on the phone when we were talking about your script and stuff. I was like, when I read, a lot of times if I'm very into what I'm reading and I don't quite know, like if there's a line of dialogue and a character says something, or I'm like, I'll like mouth or whisper the dialogue in the way that I think that they would have said it, because I'm not quite sure and I'm like testing it out. Yeah. Which is really bizarre, but also really common, I guess.
I don't think it's bizarre. I mean,
but then also like facial expressions too. So I'm not just saying how I think they would say it. I'm actually like moving my face in a way that I'm trying to mimic how I think that they would be feeling and emoting when they're saying it, which saying it out loud is so bizarre, but it's actually really common. And then now I'm like, Jesus, it's good I don't read in public that much, because I'm like, do you know how crazy I would like just sitting there like moving my face?
It gets weird too, because like I can't close my eyes when I'm doing this. They have to be open. So if you walk in on me
and you're just like staring,
I'm literally laying in my bed and I'm just like
seeing everything play out on the ceiling.
Not on the ceiling. I'm not here.
You're like, I'm gone.
No, like I'm not. Like, that's how it is too.
This is not Queen's Gambit playing chess on the ceiling.
Yeah, it's not like that at all. It's quite literally me being absorbed. Like if basically my eyeballs are now in my brain and I'm watching a movie, but there's no screen. It's just me being there. It's very, very weird, I guess. But I guess it's not as weird as I thought. I guess a lot of people do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, the way you're describing all of it, that's exactly what I experience when I'm reading. So literally the only difference to me is that you don't need the words in front of you. Because again, when I'm reading, I get so into it, there's a point where I'm not seeing the words on the page anymore. I'm completely in the world, like I would be watching a movie. I'm not here. I'm not reading. I'm there.
I think that's part of the issue I have too with my book. So I'm not getting into basically ever since I was 12 years old, I've had a book or like a series I've wanted to make. And I think the problem is the urgency's not there. Cause I just like watched it 400 times and I'm like, this is great. Like
you've already worked out all the plot lines and character arcs and the twists and turns. It's all already been mapped out. So you don't have to write it.
The only thing that makes me want to write it is because I'm like, no, people would fuck with this.
Yeah.
Like I know people would fuck with this, but then it's just like, well, I mean, because then by the time I'm writing, I'm like, well, I already did that.
Mm-hmm. It's like, this isn't shiny and new anymore. I'm bored by this. Because I don't want to.
Which is why the story adapted over time as I've gotten older. It's very, very different from where it started. And I'm like.
It's changing because it's like, well, I'm bored with that now. I've already seen that and thought about that 100 times.
Yeah. It's so maybe you'll see my book one day and maybe you won't. I'm hoping y'all will though. I mean, I think it's worth doing, but I don't know. It could just be in my head forever. And as long as I'm entertained.
See, and that's so like funny to me because like because I had a book idea as well that I had made very small progress on. Not nearly to the extent that you had. But like, it's so, you would ask me questions about this universe or the story or the characters or whatever. And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I haven't thought that far into it because.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah. And I'm like, I'll figure it out as I'm writing. Some of it, I'm just like, it'll happen as I start to write it. It's just.
And then I was like.
You're like, no.
We pretty much mapped it out though. Yeah. That's the thing with your book is we basically mapped it out.
Yeah. We
got like to the good plot point. I mean, we had
the major
twist,
plot points.
The turns.
Yeah.
I mean, we fleshed it out. I love doing that though. I literally love
story creation.
Yeah. It's so much fun because I feel like I know what questions to ask. And then I'm like, well, why is that? Like, I don't know. It's like one of my favorite things to do. I just think it's so much fun. Yeah. If there was a job for that, I would do it.
I mean, that's like show running.
No, but like, I mean, just like literally helping someone develop their story.
Oh, that's an editor.
Well, I need to do that.
Yeah. You can be an editor for a book because like I think when people think editor, they think of somebody who copy edits or proofreads.
Yeah.
No, there's different. That's a copy editor or a proofer. Yeah. If you're like a book editor, a major part of what you do is working with writers to help them craft and develop their story.
I just wished I could do that then. I feel like I'd have so much fun.
I've always said that, because I have a background in like journalism and stuff and copy editing and proofing and stuff. So I've always said that it is much easier for me even if it's a bad idea or even if it's a horrible title for an article or whatever, it is much easier for me to beef it up and make it better because you have something to start with versus coming up with something from scratch. So like being an editor is kind of that. It's taking a raw idea or whatever and just making it better. You'd be good at that.
It'd be fun. And then like with my own stuff, I'm just like, no, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I don't need any help.
It's a lot of times that like, every now and again, someone will say something that I go, oh, I like that. But it's really not often. And I don't know if that is just arrogance or if it's just like, I'm like, no, I don't like that.
No, I mean, I don't think it's arrogance. I mean, I think it's just knowing your characters and knowing the story that you want to tell. And it's okay to, hear people out and they're like, oh, you could try this or do this or whatever. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And then it gets awkward because then they're trying to help you and you're just like, you can't just go, that was garbage. Why would you even say that to me?
Me.
No. No.
Because then you just like suggest ideas and I'm just like, don't want to be like, ew.
Be like, why the fuck did you say that out loud? That's embarrassing. No, I'm just kidding.
So Johnny Depp's daughter did an interview.
Lily Rose Depp.
So Lily Rose Depp, who's Johnny Depp's daughter, she did an interview with Elle magazine. And basically in part of the interview, she says that basically she talks about being a nepotism baby. And like the whole label and what that means and what it comes with. So for people who don't know, nepotism is basically a system in which you or someone else is favored or receives certain things or perks or opportunities based on their family members, typically parents or grandparents, and who those people are.
Yeah.
Not based on their own merit or their own work ethic.
Old money.
Yeah. So it would be like a celebrity's child who has never acted before getting the opportunity to act in a huge movie and be like the star of a movie, right?
Yeah.
Simply because their parent is an actor and they get the opportunity, whereas somebody else who may be a great actor and put in a lot of time and work, whatever, they don't get the same opportunity.
Yeah, you're just getting farther ahead in life because of who your daddy is. Or your mommy or your granddaddy.
And so, and I mean, that applies to other industries outside of just Hollywood and being a celebrity. It applies to, I mean, education. So like if you get I mean, it's actually ingrained in certain educational institutions. So like universities, if you're a legacy, so if your parent went to that university, you're benefiting from nepotism. Or if your parent was part of a sorority or fraternity, you are often favored because you're a legacy. Nepotism.
Yeah.
If you get even just, you know, if you get interviews for a specific job because your parents know people or they're involved in that industry, nepotism, right?
Yeah.
Not saying it's good or bad. It just is what it is. It's part of the way that it works. I mean, it's a little more, it's not quite the same as networking, but networking can go hand in hand with nepotism because your parent can get you in the door somewhere that other people couldn't necessarily get in.
Yeah.
And then you can use your networking skills to then meet people and make friends and build your network, right?
Yeah.
So again, not bad, not good, just kind of is what it is. And but it is often frowned upon when you don't acknowledge the nepotism for what it is and that it did benefit you in some way to get you in the door. So Lily Rose Depp did an interview with Elle. And she said, I can definitely say that nothing is going to get you the part except for being right for the part. There's a lot of work that comes after that. If somebody's mom or dad is a doctor and then the kid becomes a doctor, you're not going to be like, well, you're only a doctor because your parent is a doctor. It's like, no, I went to medical school and trained.
I just don't feel like that's the same.
Yeah, I would agree.
I actually hard disagree with this. I think that was in a way she could have just went so many different ways about it. But the fact is, people are cast in movies all the time that are trash and they're not good. And sometimes it is because of nepotism.
Yep.
You know what, though? You're literally not going to get a job at a hospital unless you did go to medical school and unless you can actually perform said job. Like that is because that's like a life or death situation. Acting is not life or death. It's just not.
Yeah. There's
certain fields that you quite literally have to excel at, whether your parent did or did not.
Yes. You have to pass the test. It is not your ability to be a doctor and, you know, get a job at a hospital is not based on who your daddy or mommy is. And it is not based on them being friends with somebody or knowing somebody who works at the hospital.
Exactly. No.
Your ability to be a doctor and practice medicine is based on the fact that you are able to go to medical school, pass the test, and display in front of a bunch of different kinds of people that you have the knowledge and ability to do this.
I mean, in a way, think of it this way. Whether you like Willow Smith or Jaden, they have music careers easily because of who their dad is.
Yes.
That's not to say they aren't talented, but that's just saying the reason that so easily came to them is because of who their dad is. And the thing is, I don't necessarily think that there's an issue with that.
No, and that's not saying that they don't work hard.
Exactly.
That's not saying that they aren't talented.
You know, an example of that is Ice Cube's son played him in Straight Outta Compton. He made him take the acting classes. He made him do all this, but he had that audition to be his dad because of who his dad is.
Yeah.
Which is fine. He still had to work extra fucking hard to get said role, but that's why he was even considered for the role. That's why some people have careers. Like, are we going to seriously act like that Gigi Hadid and Bella Hadid would be who they are without their mom? That's not an insult to them or their careers. It's just facts. Yolanda literally set that all up because she was a model.
Yep.
So,
too, I mean, it's not just benefiting from your parents having money or them having experience in the field because they can give you, I mean, because the same can be said for a parent, you know, a child whose parents are doctors. They make good money and that helps them afford to be able to go to medical school. They also can get knowledge, you know, directly from people working in the field that they're very close to that other people aren't able to get. So you do get a little bit of a leg up on everyone else in that situation. And that's not necessarily that's not the nepotism at play. The money and the information in that, like just the knowledge about that specific thing, that's not nepotism. That's using your resources.
Exactly.
You know, that's just being in a position where it's like, okay, I'm also happen to be interested in this thing that my parents do. That's not nepotism. The nepotism is that your name gets put in the hat, your foot gets in the door because of your parents, because of their name.
I mean, and to act like that hasn't been in her favor. I mean, her mom, I believe, was a model, and her dad is Johnny Depp. Yes. There's nothing wrong with this. So like, it's more annoying that you want to act like it's not a thing when it is.
And you know what's funny is I have actually benefited from nepotism because my very first job that I got working at Cracker Barrel, I was a hostess. Got it when I was 16 years old. And the reason I got that job is because my aunt at that time was a manager at Cracker Barrel. Not the same one because there's like rules about fraternization with managers and employees and stuff. So I could not work at the same store she worked at. But literally all she had to do was put in a phone call to the other manager at the other location and say, hey, my niece is going to apply, and put in an application. I still had to fill out the application. I still had to go in and do an interview. It was a very brief interview, but I still did an interview. I didn't have to do multiple, just did one with like an associate manager, but still went in for an interview, still filled out the paperwork, and I still had to train. I still had to do the job. Was very good at it. But I mean, I did benefit from nepotism in that situation because I mean, I didn't have to do an extra interview, and I basically was guaranteed the job before I had even applied. So I benefited from nepotism. Again, doesn't mean I didn't have to work hard or didn't have to put in the effort to go do all these other things.
And it doesn't mean you're not talented. It doesn't mean, that's the other thing, is like no one's saying that she's not, like Lily Rose Depp isn't talented. I've never seen her in a movie before. So I mean, she very well could be just as good as her dad, better than her dad, whatever. I don't fucking know. But to act like that you haven't gotten auditions, and that's the thing too, just the fact that if you've even auditioned for something before, you probably, I mean, let's just be real. You got called for certain movies because of your dad.
Because your last name is Depp.
It's okay. That doesn't mean you're any less talented than if he wasn't your dad. And in a way, you hopefully are more talented because you've been able to be around somebody who knows how to craft characters in the way that he does. So it's just like...
And it almost, to me, seems like...
I do think that those kids have to work harder once they are... I think those kids have to work harder in the roles that they choose to prove that they are talented and they're not only there because of their parent. So I do think that's true.
I wouldn't necessarily say work harder. I think that they have to show up in a different way, right? So they can't, if it's some no-name, brand new, actor or actress that shows up on set, yeah, they're going to have to work hard to prove that they, have the chops to do the job, right? But if I think you're not necessarily having to work to prove that you can do the job. You have to work to prove that your parent is not the only reason you got this job. And it's not so much about, I don't think it's so much about like your ability to do the job as it is to convince other people that like of their perception of the situation, I guess.
I would say that a good example of that is Maya Hawke and Uma Thurman. You know who Uma Thurman is?
Yes.
So her daughter...
She was like Uma Thurman, baby.
Yeah. So she's has a really good relationship with Tarantino. I know her from Kill Bill, Pulp Fiction. Her daughter, Maya Hawke, is Robin in Stranger Things, and she is in that new movie I told you to watch called Do Revenge. She is really fucking good. She was also in a Tarantino movie, actually. She was in Once Upon a Time. And only for like a very, very brief few minutes. But like, both of her parents are actors. But I honestly didn't realize that was her mom. Because I'm just watching, I'm like, damn, and it was later on I found out that's who her mom was. And I was like, holy fucking shit. And then now you can just see how much they do look alike. But at the same time, I'm like, for her, I think that it easily, if she's proven to me already that I'm like, she may have not have gotten into the door as easily as she did. She did because of her mom. But she could have done this without her mom. I guess that's what I'm saying. They have to prove themselves even harder. Is like they need to prove that like even if it might not be this movie they would have had the chance to do, but even if they didn't have that dad or mom or whoever, they're still talented enough on their own that they just happen to share that common interest, and they're not just doing it because, oh, well, they do it, so I'm going to do it too, and type of thing. I feel like that's where I guess when I said they have to prove themselves, I need to believe that like, oh, you probably could have got this role even if you would have just auditioned for it. And if it just fell in your lap somehow. And it wasn't because you're a mom.
Yeah,
or dad.
And to me, again, it comes back to a perception thing. And that's on that person, right? So if you're Lily Rose Depp or you're Maya Hawke, that's your problem. If you do have an issue with feeling like you need to prove yourself and prove that like, you're not just a Nepo baby and that you didn't just only get this because of who your parents are and that you actually have talent and can do the job. Like that's a you thing. That's a you problem that you need to either learn to accept that people are going to think that. Or, if you feel like you need to do other things to change people's minds, okay. But like, it's not, I take issue with saying I have to work, you have to work harder and it's not as easy for you as it is for somebody whose parents aren't in the business. I mean, I think that it's like apples and oranges. It's two different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
I don't think you necessarily, because it is, I mean, you can make the argument that somebody who doesn't have parents in the business and doesn't have that, can't benefit from nepotism. You can make the argument they have to work a lot harder because they have to go out of their way on a ton more auditions, and they have to, like, it's a lot more hoops they have to jump through.
I think what I mean by work harder is I mean like the process to get the audition, they have to work harder for, like, if you don't have those parents. I don't think you have to work as hard to convince people, though, that you got the role because you deserve it. I think the Nepo babies, they have to prove harder somehow, whether it's through their performance more than likely, that they really do deserve it. I guess that's what I mean. Like, of course, yeah, people that don't have those parents, they had to work harder just to even get their foot in the door, but they don't have to work as hard to prove they deserve to be there, I think.
But then
because they're like a blank canvas. There's no indication of like, well, they're only here because of her dad. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't exist for those people.
You're saying basically that, like, what is?
I guess I mean, like, your performance has to be. You can't just give a half-ass performance if you're a Nepo baby. I'm not saying you can give a half-ass performance if you're like.
If you're not.
If you're not, but I think that it's just.
I would, because I guess to me, I'm of the mindset of, like, once you get the job, you're going to do what you need to do to, like, rock this performance and to do the best that you can to embody this character, regardless of who your parents are, if you're an actor, right? So, like,
I think maybe you'd have to be choosier with your roles. Like, maybe it needs to be, I don't know. I could see an argument of, like,
I'm like, but what does it mean to work harder once you have the role than somebody whose parents aren't in the industry? What does that look like?
I think that there's, I mean, I guess it could just go back to, like, they make shitty movies all the time and they just cast people in them because they're going to grab names. So I think you just have to make sure that's not what you're doing. So when I say work harder, maybe it's be pickier. Maybe it's, you're not working with the big name directors. Maybe you have to work harder in the sense of, like, making connections outside of what your parents made. So that way you need to go the indie film route. But basically, maybe it's not work harder. Maybe it's
just
be
differently.
Pickier.
It's work differently. It's, I guess.
I don't know. I'm kind of, like, irritated at her answer because I just think that, like, I understand what she thinks she's saying, I guess, or how but it kind of came across very privileged and ignorant, to be honest.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we said at the beginning, like, nepotism isn't bad, it isn't good, it just is.
Like, don't try to act like you're not. That's what's annoying.
Exactly.
Like, don't try to act like you don't benefit from it. You do. Just to say, yeah, I have, and I'm very thankful for the position that I'm in, and just leave it at that. Don't try to act like it doesn't exist, because, like, that's just stupid. No hate towards her or anything. It's just like, what was the point?
There's certain celebrities that are actually, like, Nepo babies.
Angelina Jolie's a fucking Nepo baby.
But they have been able to successfully distinguish themselves from their parents to where they can stand on their own acting chops, right? So you've got Angelina Jolie, who's a very good example. Her dad, John Voight, is, which they have a weird relationship.
Yeah.
They don't really have one anymore. But,
no.
Her dad is a very well-known actor. So she's a Nepo baby. You've got...
but she stands so strong on her own. You would have never even... unless someone told you that, you wouldn't even know at this point.
Tracee Ellis Ross. Her mom is it Diana Ross? Her mother's the singer Diana Ross.
Carrie Fisher. Her mom.
Debbie Reynolds? I think that's her name.
Her mom was the grandma in Halloween Town. I had no fucking clue. But and then her daughters in Scream Queens.
Billie Lourd is her daughter.
Yeah. So I'm like...
I had no idea that the three of them were related.
Fuck no. Had no idea. Zero fucking idea.
But Billie Lourd's a great actress.
She's great.
She's awesome.
I mean, Emma Roberts is related to...
Julia Roberts. She's her niece.
Yes. But Emma Roberts is fucking amazing.
Did you know, speaking of Julia Roberts, that Martin Luther King Jr. paid for her birth at the hospital? Where she was...
No.
Yeah. He paid for her birth and the whole situation. Yeah.
That's like...
I randomly learned that like a couple weeks ago and was like, the fuck?
What the fuck?
Exactly.
I think in some way, shape, or form, we've all benefited from nepotism. And it just is what it is. And I think, whatever.
Not good, not bad. It's neutral.
Yeah, it just is what it is. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah,
you're only annoying if you act like it's not real.
Mm-hmm. If you act like it doesn't exist. Yeah. I mean, just if you don't people are always going to say what they're going to say. If they think that you only are good at this or, got the job or whatever because of who your parents are, then that's what they think. And like, fuck them. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
If you're enjoying what you love and doing what you love and you feel like you're good at it and other people maybe agree enough to put you in shit, like, that's all that matters.
Yeah, who cares?
Fuck the haters. Fuck the haters.
Fuck the haters. But, well, on that note, we're wrapping it up.
This is it.
This is it. So, anyway, guys, thanks for listening.
Thanks. Let's address our main camera.
Yes, our main camera. So, it throws me off when you don't say follow us and all the things. But anyway, guys.
Follow us on all our social media platforms at Waypod, WAYYPOD. We post new episodes on YouTube every Tuesday. You can listen to the audio-only version every Monday. It comes out a day early.
Yes.
No promises on if it's afternoon, morning,
No,
night.
it just comes out at some point on Monday.
Yep.
Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. You can do that on YouTube and also Instagram. Pretty much any social media platform you can hit that notification bell on.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
I did the wave thing.